Welcome to Pillowtime Lore. This is your soft corner of the night, a place where stories live like warm embers, glowing in the dark. Before we begin, take a moment to slow down. Let your body melt into whatever holds you, your bed, your chair, or that cozy blanket wrapped around your shoulders. Feel how the day begins to drift away, piece by piece, as if it never belonged to you in the first place. Outside your window, the night is calm. The world has quieted down, and the sky has dressed itself in stars. Imagine gentle snowflakes floating in the distance, each one falling without hurry, without noise, just a silent rhythm to remind you that everything is allowed to slow. And here, in this moment, so are you. The glow of a fireplace flickers softly nearby, its warmth wrapping around you like an embrace. The golden light catches on shelves of books, on soft pillows, on every little detail that makes a room feel like home. You breathe in, and the air feels gentle, safe, peaceful. You breathe out, and the weight of today slips further and further away. There is nothing you need to do right now. No expectation, no demand, only rest, only stillness, only the quiet anticipation of a story that will soon take you by the hand and guide you through places that exist just beyond the edge of dreams. So, let the rhythm of your breath carry you deeper into calm. With every inhale, feel your body fill with ease. With every exhale, imagine the clutter of the day dissolving like mist. You are free now, free to wander through the world of tales where time is slower, and every word is a lantern leading you further into comfort. This is Pillowtime Lore, and tonight, a story awaits you. The valley lay hidden between towering mountains, a place where the sun's light always seemed pale and muted, where the air was thick with mist that never lifted. Generations had lived here without ever knowing the feeling of a dream. Their nights were blank, their sleep heavy and empty. Their mornings began without wonder or memory, because no one dreamed anymore. The villagers moved through life like shadows, going about their routines with silent obedience. Their laughter was hollow, their songs forgotten, and their eyes carried a dullness that mirrored the gray sky above. In this valley lived Evelyn, a young healer known for her gentle hands and quiet heart. She cared for the sick and mended wounds, offering herbs and whispered comfort. Yet beneath her calm exterior, she carried a dangerous secret. Every night when she closed her eyes, she dreamed vivid, colorful dreams that felt more real than the waking world. Sometimes they were filled with strange lands and glowing skies. Other times with faces she had never seen but felt she somehow knew. She would wake with tears or laughter caught in her throat, her heart pounding with both fear and longing. Evelyn never told a soul about her dreams. She knew what would happen if she did. The villagers spoke in hushed voices of curses and old evils. They believed that to dream was a sign of being touched by something unholy. The elders had warned since childhood that those who saw things in their sleep would bring ruin upon them all. Evelyn could not bear the thought of being cast out, or worse, bringing harm to the people she loved. So she locked her secret deep inside, wearing a calm smile by day, while by night she lived in a world that belonged to her alone. Rumors of the valley's curse had lingered for centuries, drifting through fragments of old songs and broken myths. No one knew the full truth, only that long ago something terrible had happened, something powerful enough to strip an entire people of their dreams. And, though the details had faded with time, the fear had never left. It clung to the villagers like the mist that curled around their homes, whispering of dangers they could not name. The night the storm came was unlike any the valley had seen in years. The sky churned with black clouds, the wind howled through the narrow streets, and rain lashed against the wooden shutters of the villagers' homes. Thunder rolled across the mountains like the roar of some ancient beast. Evelyn was returning late from tending to a sick child when she saw a dark shape lying near the edge of the forest. At first, she thought it was a fallen tree branch, but as lightning split the sky, she saw the outline of a man. Unmoving and drenched in blood and rain, heart pounding, she rushed to his side. His skin was ice cold, his breathing shallow and ragged. He looked like he had traveled a great distance and suffered greatly to reach this place. Without thinking, Evelyn dragged him to the small cabin where she kept her healing supplies. She worked quickly, stripping away his soaked cloak and binding his wounds with strips of clean cloth. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside there was only the sound of his labored breaths and the steady rhythm of Evelyn's hands as she fought to keep him alive. By morning, the storm had passed, and the man stirred, his eyes opening to reveal a strange, piercing light within them. When Evelyn asked his name, he whispered Kale, as though the word itself carried weight. His voice was rough, and his words were strange. He spoke of cycles and hunger, of something that devours from within. Evelyn could not make sense of it, yet the way he looked at her sent chills racing down her spine. The villagers were suspicious when they learned of his presence. Outsiders were rarely seen and never trusted. They warned Evelyn that trouble always followed strangers, but she kept Kale hidden, tending to his wounds in secret. When he was strong enough to sit, he began asking about her nights, about whether she ever dreamed. Evelyn's heart raced, but she shook her head and lied, saying her sleep was as empty as everyone else's. Kale only smiled faintly, as if he did not believe her. Nights in the valley were always silent, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin and sank into the bones. But ever since Kale's arrival, that silence felt heavier, as if something unseen was holding its breath. Kale often stayed awake through the long hours of darkness, sitting by the small fire with eyes that seemed to see far beyond the cabin walls. One night, when the wind rattled the roof and the mist curled thick around the windows, he began to speak, his voice low and steady. He told Evelyn of other villages far beyond the mountains, places where people once dreamed freely, places now nothing more than crumbled ruins. He spoke of a thing he called the Nameless Hunger, a creature not of flesh and bone, but of desire itself. It would creep into dreams, feeding on them until there was nothing left. First the dreams, then the people, then even the memory of who they were. Cale's words painted pictures so vivid that Evelyn shivered, clutching her shawl tighter around her shoulders. When she asked how he knew these things, he only said he had seen what hunger could do, and he never wished to see it again. Cale hinted that the valley's lack of dreams was no accident. He said the mist, the silence, even the strange emptiness in the villagers' eyes were not a curse, but a shield, a fragile barrier, keeping something far worse from breaking through. Evelyn wanted to believe him, yet a part of her resisted. Her whole life, she had been taught that dreaming was dangerous. Now Cale was telling her that the danger came not from dreaming itself, but from what lurked inside those dreams. As nights passed, Evelyn began to notice unsettling changes. Her dreams were growing sharper, brighter, almost too real. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of Cale's face, his hand reaching for hers, his voice whispering words she did not understand. When she confronted him, his only response was a faint, knowing smile that made her heart race with both fear and longing. A connection was forming between them, one she could not explain, and it terrified her more than the storm outside. The ruins of the old temple stood at the far edge of the valley, half swallowed by creeping vines and heavy mist. The villagers avoided it, whispering that to enter was to invite misfortune. It was said that the temple was once a place of worship, a place where dreams were honored. But now it was nothing more than a broken skeleton of stone and silence. Evelyn had walked past it countless times, always feeling its pull, and on this night, when Cale's words still echoed in her mind, she could no longer resist. With her lantern clutched tightly in one hand, she slipped away under the cover of darkness. The temple was colder than the night air, its walls cracked and damp, its floors scattered with fragments of carvings long erased by time. Evelyn's footsteps echoed softly as she moved deeper inside. Guided by a feeling she could not name, in the innermost chamber she found a heavy wooden chest, covered in dust and sealed with rusted iron. She pried it open with trembling hands, and inside lay a collection of ancient scrolls, their surfaces brittle and yellowed. Her breath caught as she unrolled the first one. The words told a story unlike any she had ever heard. Long ago, there had been a man known only as the Dreamweaver. He was gifted with the power to shape dreams into reality. But when the Nameless Hunger rose to devour the valley, he made a terrible choice. He bound the creature in a prison of eternal sleep, sealing it beneath the valley itself. The cost of this magic was great. To keep the monster asleep, he stripped the villagers of their ability to dream, leaving them safe but hollow at the very end of the scrolls. Evelyn found a prophecy written in faded ink. It spoke of one who would rise with dreams in her heart, the final key to breaking the cycle. Her hands shook as the truth settled over her. She was the dreamer the prophecy spoke of, and Cale's sudden arrival was no coincidence. It was all connected, and her quiet life was about to unravel. Days passed in a strange rhythm. The storm had cleared, leaving the valley wrapped in its usual quiet mist. But inside Evelyn's cabin, life felt different. Cale's strength slowly returned under her care, and with it, his guarded nature began to soften. They spent long hours talking by the fire, their conversations winding from small things to stories of distant lands Evelyn had never seen. Cale spoke of mountains that touched the clouds, oceans so vast they seemed endless, and cities filled with lights that never dim. His words painted pictures in Evelyn's mind, stirring a hunger she had never known. Sometimes, when the firelight flickered across his face, Cale would grow quiet, his gaze distant, and then he would share pieces of his past. He spoke of betrayal, of being hunted by those he once trusted, of making choices that weighed heavily on his soul. But his stories often tangled together, parts missing or changed, leaving Evelyn with more questions than answers. Still, she felt the pain in his voice, the loneliness beneath his strength, and it reached something deep inside her. Though Evelyn told herself to be cautious, her heart began to betray her. She found herself drawn to Cale in ways she did not understand. His presence made her feel both safe and unsettled, as if he were a storm and a shelter all at once. One evening, as the mist curled outside, she confessed a small piece of her secret. She told him of a single dream, one where she stood beneath a sky full of glowing stars she had never seen. Cale listened with an intensity that made her chest tighten, and when she finished, he took her hand gently. Evelyn did not realize that every detail she gave him wove an invisible thread between them, binding her more tightly to his fate. Their closeness felt tender and warm, yet there was a shadow beneath it, a quiet sense of inevitability, as though their bond was not only chosen by them, but written long before they ever met. The Festival of Ashes came once every year, though no one truly remembered its origin. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces pale and solemn, carrying baskets of dried flowers and handfuls of ash. It was said to be a celebration of the valley's peace, a way to honor the silence that kept them safe. But Evelyn always felt an emptiness beneath the rituals, as if they were honoring something they could not name. The mist hung heavy that evening, and torches lined the paths, their flames wavering in the damp air. Evelyn walked among the crowd with Cale at her side, yet she felt strangely distant, like she was watching the festival through a dream. The villagers moved in unison, scattering ash over the ground while chanting words so old their meaning had been lost. Cale's expression was unreadable as he observed them, his gaze sharp and almost hungry. When Evelyn asked what he thought of the ceremony, he only murmured that traditions were often built on buried truths, his tone sending a chill down her spine. As the chanting reached its peak, Evelyn's vision blurred. The torches stretched into streaks of light, and suddenly the ground beneath her feet seemed to shift. She gasped as the earth cracked open in her mind's eye, and from the darkness below rose a monstrous shape, vast and writhing, a thing with no face and countless reaching limbs. At its side stood Cale, his head bent close to the creature, as if whispering to it, his voice joining its deep, guttural hum. Evelyn tried to scream, but no sound escaped, and then she woke, clutching her chest, drenched in cold sweat. When she confronted Cale later, her voice shaking, he did not deny knowing what she had seen. He admitted he was familiar with the nameless hunger, swearing he had spent his life trying to keep it from waking. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of darkness she had never noticed before. Evelyn's heart filled with dread as doubt took root. For the first time, she wondered if Cale was truly her ally, or if he had been part of the danger all along. Evelyn could no longer bear the weight of her doubts. The vision of Cale standing beside the monstrous shape haunted her every waking moment, and his cryptic words only deepened her unease. One evening, when the mist was so thick it pressed against the cabin windows like a living thing, she cornered him by the fire, her voice trembling as she demanded answers. Cale sat in silence for a long while, his face half hidden by the shifting shadows, until finally he lifted his gaze to hers, his expression heavy with something like sorrow. He told her the truth he had kept locked away, words that seemed to tear at him as they left his lips. He was not entirely human, though he wore a human face and body. He was a fragment of something far older, the last piece of the dream weaver's soul. When the dream weaver had sacrificed himself to bind the nameless hunger beneath the valley, his body had perished, but his soul had split, scattering into nothingness. Only a single shard remained. Given shape and will, Cale was that shard, created to guide the one destined to end the cycle. His mission was simple, yet terrible. He was bound to seek out the last dreamer, to help her reach the moment where her choice would either free the valley or destroy it. He revealed that Evelyn's dreams were the key. If she gave them to him freely, the seal would break, and the valley would return to what it once was. But if she refused, the hunger would awaken and devour everything. Evelyn staggered back, her chest tight with shock and betrayal. Her heart twisted as she realized their closeness, their shared moments, might have been nothing more than a carefully woven plan. When she asked if he had only pretended to care, Cale's voice broke as he swore his feelings were real. Yet Evelyn could no longer tell which parts of his story were truth and which were lies, leaving her torn between love and fear. The valley was no longer quiet. The mist that once hung like a heavy blanket began to twist and churn as if alive. A low rumbling rose from deep beneath the earth, shaking the ground and rattling the walls of the villagers' homes. Cracks split through the cobblestone paths, releasing thin streams of dark vapor that curled into the air. The villagers stumbled into the square, their faces pale with confusion and terror. For the first time in generations, they began to see visions, flashes of color and shape tearing through their minds. These were not gentle dreams, but twisted nightmares, the kind that clawed at the soul. Men and women screamed as they saw monstrous creatures lurking in the mist, shadowy forms whispering terrible truths. Children clung to their parents, sobbing in fear. Their blank, dreamless lives had not prepared them for the flood of images now overwhelming their senses. Evelyn rushed among them, trying to calm their panic. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The seal that held the nameless hunger was breaking. Cale appeared at her side, his face tense, his voice urgent, as he begged her to act before it was too late. He told her there was only one way to restore balance. She must give her dreams to him freely, surrender every piece of herself. He swore that if she did, the creature would be sealed forever and peace would return. Evelyn's heart ached at the desperation in his eyes, yet a quiet doubt gnawed at her. The scrolls had spoken of sacrifice and choice, but their words had been incomplete, fragmented. Evelyn began to suspect there was another path, one hidden even from Kale. She started to form a plan, a dangerous, untested idea that could destroy her or save everyone. She kept her thoughts hidden, even as she nodded to Kale, pretending to agree, while inside her resolve hardened like iron. The night of the final confrontation was thick with mist and dread. The old temple loomed like a shadow at the edge of the valley, its broken pillars rising from the earth like jagged teeth. Evelyn walked through the ruins with her lantern trembling in her hand. Kale followed close behind, his voice urgent, warning her that time was running out. Beneath their feet, the ground pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, as if some vast heart was beating deep underground. When they reached the temple's heart, the earth split open, and from the darkness rose the Nameless Hunger. Its form was shifting and formless, a mass of shadow and desire. Countless reaching limbs and faces that melted and changed with every breath. Its voice was not a sound, but a feeling. Pressing into Evelyn's mind, it whispered promises sweeter than honey, showing her visions of a world where the villagers laughed and loved, where dreams flowed freely and endlessly, where she could be with Kale under a sky filled with stars that never dimmed. Evelyn staggered, her chest aching at the beauty of it. Kale caught her hand, his grip fierce, his voice breaking as he begged her to choose him, to trust him just one last time. He swore that if she gave her dreams to him freely, all would be restored. But in that moment, Evelyn saw the truth clearer than ever before. The prophecy had never been about giving or taking dreams. It was about ending the cycle entirely. If she gave Kale her dreams, the hunger would always return. Tears streaming down her face, Evelyn whispered that she loved him, then stepped forward and pressed her hands to her own heart, releasing every dream she carried, but not to Kale or the creature. She destroyed them, herself along with them. The hunger screamed as its prison shattered into nothingness. And then there was silence, the mist lifting as the cycle ended forever. The morning came quietly, like a breath after a long sob. For the first time in centuries, the valley lay beneath a clear sky. The thick mist that had always clung to its edges was gone. Scattered by the soft touch of dawn, golden light spilled over the rooftops and fields, painting the village in warmth it had never known. The villagers stirred from their sleep, blinking against the brightness, their faces calm and untroubled. They remembered nothing of the curse or the terror that had haunted their ancestors. Their hearts were light, free to dream for the very first time. Children laughed as they ran through the streets, marveling at the colors of the sunrise. Elders sat outside their homes with wonder in their eyes. Some wept without knowing why, their souls recognizing a freedom their minds could not name. They spoke of strange and beautiful dreams they had seen during the night. Dreams of stars, rivers, and voices they could not place. And though they did not understand them, the dreams filled them with a quiet joy. Life began anew, simple and pure, untouched by the shadow that had once consumed this place, far beyond the village. In a quiet field where the final battle had been fought, a single wildflower swayed in the breeze, its petals glowing faintly as if holding the last trace of a vanished soul. No one came there, for no one remembered what had been lost. Yet the air carried a softness, a peace that could be felt by anyone who passed through. Sometimes, when the wind stirred just right, a faint, lilting laugh could be heard, so light it could almost be mistaken for birdsong. Though Evelyn was gone, her sacrifice lived on in the dreams of every villager, unseen and unspoken, and somewhere beyond mortal reach, hope bloomed, eternal and unbroken.